When we think of this conutry, vast windswept steppes, galloping horsemen, and the indomitable figure of Genghis Khan often spring to mind. Yet its story is far richer, more complex, and more surprising than the image of endless grasslands and conquerors. For millennia, this rugged land at the heart of Eurasia has been a crossroads of peoples, ideas, and empires. It has witnessed the rise and fall of powerful Khanates, the forging of the largest contiguous empire the world has ever known, centuries of domination under foreign dynasties, and finally its rebirth as a modern democratic nation. This is the history of Mongolia, a history that not only shaped the destiny of its own people, but left an indelible mark on the world. The Mongolian plateau, with its vast steppe and harsh climate, has been home to human communities for hundreds of thousands of years. Early Paleolithic tools discovered in the Gobi Desert suggest that humans hunted and gathered here long before the emergence of agriculture. During the Neolithic period, communities began to leave more visible cultural traces. Among the most remarkable are cave paintings at Khoid Tsenkarin Agui and Tsagan Agui, which depict animals and hunting scenes. These works testify to a spiritual life already tied closely to nature. The Bronze Age marked a significant shift. Nomadic tribes began to organize societies more complex than the loose bands of hunters. Large stone monuments, such as the deer stones, slabs decorated with carved images of deer in motion, were erected across the steppe. These megalithic structures are interpreted as both memorials and spiritual markers, reflecting the importance of animals, warfare, and ritual in early Mongolian culture. By the second millennium before Christ, the so-called slab grave culture spread across northern and eastern Mongolia, characterized by rectangular stone enclosures marking burial grounds. The Iron Age introduced new waves of migration and cultural mixing. By the first millennium before Christ, the Mongolian plateau was already a crossroads of Eurasia. Metalworking spread into the region, allowing for stronger weapons and tools. Nomadic peoples began to master mounted horseback riding, an innovation that would later define Mongolian civilization. These developments created the foundation for the rise of great nomadic confederations. The first of these was the Xiongnu Confederation, which rose in the 3rd century before Christ. The Xiongnu established a formidable empire stretching across much of Central Asia, and frequently clashed with the Han Dynasty of China. Their cavalry, skilled archery, and ability to mobilize quickly across the steppe gave them military dominance. For centuries, the Mongolian plateau served as the core of the Xiongnu Empire, linking trade routes that would later form part of the Silk Road. When the Xiongnu fell in the first centuries of the Common Era, their place was taken by new powers such as the Xianbei and later the Yuan, showing how Mongolia was never static, but constantly shifting under the tides of migration and conquest. The collapse of the Xiongnu did not end the importance of the Mongolian plateau. Instead, it ushered in centuries of continuous transformation as one nomadic empire after another rose and fell. In the 5th century, the Yuan Khanate ruled much of Mongolia, Central Asia, and northern China. They were among the first to use the title Khan. However, by the late 6th century, they were overthrown by the Gokturks, a Turkic-speaking people who established one of the largest empires of their time. The Gokturks introduced runic inscriptions carved on stone steles in the Orkhon Valley, some of the earliest written records found in Mongolia. These inscriptions provide valuable insight into the social and political life of early nomadic states, emphasizing loyalty, military valor, and the divine mandate of the Khan. By the 8th century, the Uyghur Khanate rose to power, establishing its capital at Ordubalik in the Orkhon Valley. This Khanate became wealthy and influential, not only through warfare, but also through trade and cultural exchange. The Uyghurs adopted Manichaeism and later Buddhism, showing how religious currents flowed into Mongolia from Central Asia. However, in the mid-9th century, the Uyghurs were defeated by the Kyrgyz, forcing migrations westward. In the following centuries, Mongolia came under the influence of the Khitan Liao dynasty, which ruled large parts of northern China and Mongolia. The Khitans brought new administrative systems and greater integration into the East Asian political sphere. By the 11th and 12th centuries, the Jurchen Jin dynasty rose to power, further weakening Mongol independence. Despite these foreign dominations, Mongolic tribes survived and maintained their identity. Tribes such as the Khamag Mongol, Tatars, Khanates, Naiman, Oirats, and Merkit dominated different regions of the steppe. Their relationships were complex, sometimes allies, often bitter rivals. They fought over pasture land, horses, and trade routes. Their shifting alliances created a volatile political environment. Religion also became increasingly important as tribes adopted forms of Nestorian Christianity, Buddhism, and traditional shamanism. By the 12th century, this fractured political landscape created opportunities for ambitious leaders. The Khamag Mongol, led by Kabul Khan and later Yesugei, resisted both Jin incursions and rival tribes. Yet it was Temujin, son of Yesugei, who would harness the disunity of the steppe and transform it into the foundation of the Mongol Empire. His rise from an impoverished outcast to great Khan demonstrates how the chaotic tribal world of 12th century Mongolia was ripe for unification under a visionary leader. Temujin's early life was marked by hardship. After his father's death, his family was abandoned by their tribe, forcing them to survive on meager means. Yet through exceptional determination, charisma, and a keen understanding of tribal politics, Temujin forged alliances and built a disciplined army bound by loyalty rather than kinship. In 1206, at a grand Kurultai near the Onon River, he was proclaimed Genghis Khan, meaning universal ruler. Under his leadership, the Mongols swiftly conquered rival tribes, creating a unified nation on the steppe for the first time. Genghis Khan reformed military structure into decimal units, enforced meritocracy, and introduced the Yasa, a universal code of law ensuring discipline and justice. With these reforms, the Mongol army became the most formidable fighting force in history. The conquests began with the Western Xia and the Jin dynasty in northern China, followed by the Khwarezm Empire in Central Asia. Within 2 decades, Mongol armies stormed cities from Samarkand to Kiev, leaving an empire stretching from the Pacific Ocean to the Caspian Sea. Genghis Khan's campaigns were brutal, but also remarkably organized, promoting trade, communication, and cultural exchange across Eurasia. Genghis Khan died in 1227, but his empire continued to expand under his descendants. Ogedei Khan completed the conquest of China's Jin dynasty and launched invasions into Eastern Europe. Möngke Khan led campaigns into the Middle East, and his brother Kubilai Khan conquered southern China, establishing the Yuan dynasty in 1271. At its height, the Mongol Empire connected east and west under a single political and commercial network, the foundation of what historians later called the Pax Mongolica. After the fall of the Yuan dynasty to the Ming in 1368, the Mongols retreated northward, forming the Northern Yuan. Although the Great Khan title persisted, real power fragmented among regional lords. The Oirat tribes in the west became dominant, often clashing with the Khalkha in the east. Despite constant warfare, the Mongols preserved their identity, traditions, and pride in their imperial past. In the 15th century, Dayan Khan and the remarkable Queen Mandukai the Wise attempted to reunify the Mongols, restoring order and reviving traditions from Genghis Khan's era. Under their rule, the Mongols enjoyed a brief resurgence in unity and strength. Meanwhile, Tibetan Buddhism spread widely, becoming the main religion of the Mongolian people and transforming monasteries into centers of learning and political influence. By the 17th century, internal conflicts and the rise of the Manchu Qing dynasty in China drew Mongolia into a new era of subjugation. Following the defeat of the Dzungar Khanate, the Qing dynasty secured full control over Mongolia. In 1691, Khalkha nobles swore allegiance to the Qing emperor at Dolonor, marking the start of 2 centuries of imperial rule. Mongolia was divided into administrative banners and amigs, each governed by local aristocrats under the watchful eyes of Qing officials. While the Qing limited Chinese migration into Outer Mongolia, Inner Mongolia became increasingly settled and Sinicized. The Khalkha Mongols retained their nomadic way of life, relying on animal husbandry, but their economy stagnated. Buddhism thrived under Qing patronage, with the Bogd recognized as the spiritual leader. Monasteries grew in wealth and power, sometimes overshadowing secular authority. By the late 19th century, Qing authority declined, corruption spread, and reforms were resisted. The growing influx of Han settlers into Inner Mongolia alarmed the Khalkha nobility. At the dawn of the 20th century, Mongolia found itself under the waning authority of the Qing dynasty, which for nearly 200 years had controlled the steppe through a network of Chinese officials and local nobles. Yet beneath the surface of this imposed stability lay a growing discontent among Mongolian princes and the Buddhist clergy. As the Qing Empire crumbled amid revolution and internal decay, the Mongols saw their opportunity to reclaim their lost independence. In December of 1911, amid the fall of the Qing dynasty, the Mongolian nobility and clergy in Khalkha declared the restoration of national sovereignty. The spiritual leader, the 8th Jebtsundamba Kutuktu, was enthroned as Bogd Khan, both the religious and temporal head of a newly proclaimed Great Mongolian state. The government established its capital at Urga, introduced a national flag, and organized a small army. While Russia offered cautious diplomatic backing, it stopped short of recognizing full independence to avoid confrontation with China. This new theocratic state sought to restore the glories of Old Mongolia, blending Buddhism with traditional governance. The administration was staffed by nobles and monks, and early attempts were made to establish taxation, law enforcement, and a postal service. Yet Mongolia remained fragile, its population small, and its economy weak. The new government depended heavily on Russian advisors for guidance and protection. In 1915, after years of negotiation, the Kyakhta Agreement was signed between Russia, China, and Mongolia. This treaty officially granted Mongolia autonomy under Chinese suzerainty, recognizing its right to self-administration while reaffirming China's sovereignty. Although this arrangement gave Mongolia some breathing room, it also ensured that true independence remained out of reach. The following years brought turbulence. After the Russian Revolution of 1917, the fall of the Tsarist regime deprived Mongolia of its main protector. In 1919, the Chinese warlord Shu Shuzheng invaded Urga with his troops, abolishing autonomy and imposing direct Chinese rule. Mongolian nobles and monks were humiliated, their authority curtailed, and heavy taxes imposed on the people. The resentment this provoked soon set the stage for revolution. Amid this chaos, the Russian Civil War spilled into Mongolia. In early 1921, the White Russian warlord Baron Roman von Ungern-Sternberg swept into Urga, driving out the Chinese garrison and restoring Bogd Khan to the throne. But his brutal rule, marked by terror, mysticism, and anti-modern fanaticism, alienated both Mongols and Russians alike. Meanwhile, a new revolutionary movement was rising, inspired by Bolshevik ideals and supported by Soviet Russia. Under the leadership of Damdin Sukbatar and Khorlugin Choibalsan, Mongolian revolutionaries organized the Mongolian People's Army and launched a campaign to liberate the country. With Soviet assistance, they defeated Ungern's forces and entered Urga in July 1921. The victory was proclaimed as the People's Revolution. Bogd Khan was allowed to remain as a symbolic monarch, but real power now rested in the hands of the revolutionary government. Over the next few years, Mongolia underwent a profound transformation. A new state apparatus was formed, inspired by Soviet models but adapted to local conditions. The feudal hierarchy began to dissolve, taxes were restructured, and education was promoted among commoners. However, tension simmered between traditional Buddhist authorities and the radical revolutionaries. When Bogd Khan died in 1924, the monarchy itself was abolished. The country was proclaimed the Mongolian People's Republic, marking the end of the old theocratic order and the beginning of a new socialist era. The revolutionaries, guided by the ideology of Marxism-Leninism and the close support of the Soviet Union, sought to transform Mongolia from a traditional nomadic society into a modern socialist state. Ulaanbaatar, formerly Urga, was renamed in honor of the revolution, meaning Red Hero, and soon became the political and cultural heart of the new republic. In its early years, the government embarked on a series of ambitious reforms. Land was nationalized, private property restricted, and monasteries placed under state control. Education became secular and free, and the first generation of Mongolian students was sent to study in the Soviet Union. Roads, hospitals, and schools began to appear across the vast steppe. Yet the pace of change created friction. Traditional herders resisted collectivization, monks opposed anti-religious campaigns, and nobles resented the loss of status. By the early 1930s, Mongolia's revolutionary leadership came under increasing Soviet influence. As Stalin consolidated his power in Moscow, Mongolia followed suit. Under the leadership of Khorlugin Choibalsan, the Mongolian People's Revolutionary Party launched a series of purges aimed at eradicating counter-revolutionary elements. Thousands of officials, intellectuals, and monks were arrested, tortured, or executed. The once powerful Buddhist church was virtually annihilated. Over 800 monasteries were destroyed, and tens of thousands of monks perished. The terror of this era left deep scars that would endure for generations. Despite the brutality, the government continued to pursue modernization. Collectivization transformed the nomadic economy, forming state herding cooperatives that pooled livestock and labor. Industrial projects, financed and supervised by Soviet engineers, emerged in Ulaanbaatar, Erdenet, and Darkhan. A new socialist culture began to take root, emphasizing literacy, equality, and loyalty to the party. Women gained the right to vote and access to education and employment. By the late 1930s, the Republic had become one of the most faithful satellites of the Soviet Union. When World War II erupted, Mongolia aligned firmly with the USSR. Its territory served as a key logistical base, and Mongolian troops fought alongside Soviet soldiers in the Battle of Khalkhin Gol in 1939, defeating Japanese forces near the Manchurian border. During the war, the Mongolian government supplied livestock, wool, and funds to the Red Army, symbolizing its unwavering solidarity. In 1945, following Japan's surrender, the Yalta Conference allowed a referendum in Mongolia to confirm its independence. The result was nearly unanimous in favor, and in 1946, under Soviet pressure, the Republic of China finally recognized Mongolia's sovereignty. From that moment onward, the Mongolian People's Republic stood as a fully independent state, though its policies and security remained deeply tied to Moscow. The post-war decades witnessed unprecedented change. The government launched successive 5-year plans that aimed to industrialize and modernize the country. New cities, mines, and factories arose, and illiteracy was virtually eradicated. Healthcare and education expanded to even the most remote regions. Soviet aid accounted for a large share of the national budget, and tens of thousands of Mongolians studied in the Soviet Union. Ulaanbaatar was transformed into a modern socialist capital with wide boulevards, concrete housing blocks, and monuments honoring revolutionary heroes. However, progress came with dependency. The Mongolian economy was tightly bound to the Soviet bloc, and any disruption in Moscow rippled through the entire country. The political system remained rigidly authoritarian, with the Mongolian People's Revolutionary Party controlling every aspect of life. Dissent was rare and dangerous. Religion was suppressed, and the ancient Mongolian script was replaced with Cyrillic, deepening Soviet cultural influence. When the Sino-Soviet split erupted in the 1960s, Mongolia sided firmly with the Soviet Union. Soviet military bases were established within Mongolian territory as a buffer against China, turning the nation into a key front of the Cold War in Asia. Relations with Beijing remained hostile for decades, isolating Mongolia from its southern neighbor. By the 1980s, cracks began to appear. Economic stagnation, shortages, and the decline of Soviet power undermined the system. The long-serving leader Yumjagin Tsedenbal, who had ruled for over 3 decades, was removed from office in 1984. Inspired by the reforms of Perestroika and Glasnost in the Soviet Union, Mongolian intellectuals and youth began demanding change. In the winter of 1989, demonstrations spread through Ulaanbaatar. Students and workers gathered in Sukhbatar Square, calling for democracy, freedom of speech, and multi-party elections. The government, unwilling to use force, opened dialogue with the opposition. The collapse of the communist system in 1990 ushered Mongolia into a new chapter of democracy and free markets after nearly 70 years of socialist rule. What set Mongolia apart was the peaceful nature of its revolution, a transformation led not by violence, but by students and citizens demanding change through protest and dialogue. The first multi-party elections were held that same year, and a new constitution in 1992 established Mongolia as a sovereign democratic republic guaranteeing civil rights and private property. The 1990s were a time of both liberation and hardship. The disintegration of the Soviet Union in 1991 ended decades of financial aid, plunging Mongolia into economic crisis. Inflation soared, industries collapsed, and herders faced extreme winters known as dezuds. Yet, despite the turmoil, reforms continued. Markets were liberalized, state enterprises privatized, and international aid helped stabilize the country. Gradually, growth returned, driven by mining, agriculture, and foreign investment. Mongolia's democracy took root. Power began to alternate between the Mongolian People's Party and the Democratic Party, ensuring peaceful political competition. In 1996, the first non-communist government came to power, a milestone that confirmed Mongolia's democratic maturity. Throughout the early 2000s, rapid urbanization and a mining boom transformed the economy. Ulaanbaatar expanded quickly, becoming a dynamic capital where modern skyscrapers rose alongside vast gur districts. Economic growth brought new opportunities, but also new challenges. Wealth inequality widened, and environmental degradation intensified as mining spread across the steppe. Repeated diseased winters devastated herds, while rural poverty drove migration to the cities. Still, Mongolia maintained high literacy, gender equality, and freedom of the press, standing out as one of Asia's most open democracies. In foreign affairs, the country pursued its third neighbor policy, balancing its two powerful neighbors, Russia and China, by cultivating close relations with nations such as the United States, Japan, and members of the European Union. This strategy allowed Mongolia to remain independent and active in global diplomacy, joining the United Nations, the WTO, and peacekeeping missions worldwide. The 2010s brought both prosperity and uncertainty. A surge in mineral exports fueled record economic growth, over 17% in 2011, but falling commodity prices and political instability soon exposed the nation's vulnerability. Disputes over mining contracts and corruption scandals eroded public trust. Even so, Mongolia's democracy endured, with regular elections and peaceful transfers of power. In recent years, environmental and social challenges have taken center stage. Climate change and desertification threaten traditional herding life, prompting national programs such as the Billion Trees Initiative to combat land degradation. Meanwhile, Ulaanbaatar faces air pollution and housing shortages as its population continues to grow. Today, Mongolia stands as a vibrant democracy, a nation balancing the heritage of the steppe with the demands of modernity. Its vast mineral wealth offers promise but also risk, as economic dependence on global markets leaves it exposed to uncertainty. Yet, despite hardships, the Mongolian spirit remains unbroken, resilient, adaptable, and deeply proud of its independence. The journey of Mongolia through time is a tale of contrasts, from scattered tribes to the mightiest empire on earth, from centuries of foreign domination to the assertion of independence and democracy. The legacy of Genghis Khan still echoes through global trade routes, political thought, and language itself. Yet Mongolia's story is far from over. As it navigates between two great powers while preserving its independence, Mongolia remains a reminder that even a small nation in the heart of Asia can shape the course of world history, and may yet do so again.